A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Friday night. I wasn't going to do this. I did a live show at lunchtime during my lunch break, and I thought that'll do for today. And then as the day was wearing on, I thought, Christ, there's even more stuff to talk about. And I thought, well, why not? Why not just come on late night? No, Nigel. He has said he will be back next week. So I've tried to get the next best thing to fill his boots. So I've got a guest coming on, and I'll bring him on in a moment. But I hope you're all doing well. I hope you didn't have to wait too long for me. There's so much to discuss, isn't there? I mean, not only just transfers, but of course we hear that Timmy has left the building, or if it isn't official yet, he's about to. So he's on a jet plane going out somewhere. Quite ironic. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about whether he's been a success or a failure in your eyes, rather than just the boards, because I'm sure we've all got a view on that as well. But without further ado, let's get the guest on. Good evening to you, Gary. How are you?
Hello, Stel. I'm fine. It's good to be Nigel's backup. So it's I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. You go back to the beginning. Nigel helped us when we were on the other channel, so I'm quite happy with that.
Good.
But yeah, I'm fine. I'm good.
I know we chatted a little bit earlier, and you've had quite a busy week. So have you managed to calm down and settle down, looking forward to the weekend?
Well, what you did today, making a video during your lunch break, I was thinking, what's a lunch break? I've not had one of those for a couple of weeks. It's year end. I work in sales. What are you going to do, right? It's just it gets manic this time of year. It's I know how it works, but it never gets any easier. And I'm getting older every year.
It gets harder, doesn't it? I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky because I can work from home most days, and I work from home every Friday. And what I was going to do, normally, if I want to put a video out, you might do the same thing. If I want to do a pre-record, I normally do it, last thing at night, just before, and get it ready for the morning. Yes. And I didn't have time. It actually has been a busy week, which I explained to you why. And I didn't have time to do a pre-record, and I thought, Christ, there's a lot of stuff happening. So I thought, use my lunch hour. I mean, 40 minutes of my lunch break, but it was actually quite exciting, because I was up against the clock. I knew I couldn't go over the hour.
You had a meeting you had to it. Was that what it is? You had a Teams call straight after. Yeah. I mean, I work from home most of the time, apart from when I've got client meetings. But quite honestly, it means I'll start earlier, I'll finish later. I'm always on the phone. I go back-to-back meetings, different clients here. It's just chaos. Yeah. And while I'm on meetings, other people are trying to contact me, and nervous energy at the end of the day. But anyway, look, I'm not complaining. It's all right. It's a good job. So, it's just that I've been frustrated this week because we're trying to run a channel as well. And me and Chris, we're both having really busy weeks. And every time you look up and try and check the transfer news, it's just like you get a spare 10 minutes between meetings. Like one finishes early, you get 10 minutes, you have a quick look at news now. And 10 minutes later, you're none the wiser.
Yeah. Or there's about another 4 names to add to the list of the ones that you didn't have time to talk about.
In the end, I think I've given it up now, the transfer window. I think I'm just going to wait for people to sign and then learn about them and talk about them. I think that's the best policy.
I'm not going to lie to you, Gary. I said the same thing several times over the last couple of years, and then you get dragged into it.
Early on, up until the Duran deal, which I was again, I fell for it. Then I was just like, oh, we've done it. We're actually going after him this time. And then when that fell through, and then I found the details of it out, I just thought, oh dear God, we've put in a 43 million plus 14 million add-ons. All right, it is 57 million, but it's not what they're asking for.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you know the full story to that.
Nah, tell me, go on.
Well, the fullback. Well, by the way, apparently he's now on his way to Saudi. But we'll see if that happens, even though Aston Villa has said he's not for sale. But then again, he's not for sale until the right price is put on the table. So let's be realistic. Right. But I don't know if you're aware of this, but my understanding has been that this wasn't a phantom bid. which I said at the beginning of
No,
the week.
no, it was a bid. It was a bid, but it wasn't 57 million. It was that was a spin they put on it. It was total 57 million, but it wasn't a 57 million bid.
Exactly that. But apparently, dear old Sully put the bid in after knowing that PSG had put a bigger bid in, which was rejected.
So it's guaranteed to get rejected.
So it was guaranteed to be turned down. And I think this is the bit that people didn't know about. And why would you know about a bid from another, a foreign club as well?
Yeah.
But that I don't know how true that is. I don't know if that is accurate.
Perhaps you can answer me this then, because it's probably a bit of genius I had the other day, but it's what I said on one of the shows that I made. I said, funny number, that 57 million. It's like as if somebody bid 60 million. They didn't bid 60 million. Tell me they didn't bid 60 million.
There you go. Apparently the oh, by the way, good evening to everyone. I've got, good evening. I'll be putting your comments up and we'll try and answer some of them, but good evening to you all. Apparently the bid was 62 million by PSG.
So safely under that. And I understand we were nowhere near the wages either.
That I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what he was expecting or demanding, but I wouldn't be surprised.
You know what? I got caught up. Like you just said, you get excited at the start of the transfer window because you think the possibilities, and I'm sure we'll talk about the manager. I'm quite excited about the manager. I just want to see him backed. And I thought if you give him a few tools, because the last game we went to, you got to be honest, the cupboard was bare. He opened the cupboard, he got out everything he had, and he put it on the pitch. And there was nothing there. We had no attack because we got no striker, and Kudus had 3 men on him or whatever for the last.
Should we talk about that game for a minute, because it's interesting because I don't know if you were at the Villa game. I was at the Villa game for the
I was.
Cup,
yeah,
and we played. It was exciting, wasn't it? We played well.
I loved that first half. It was amazing.
Yeah, and we thought, okay. And then, of course, we had the Fulham game, and some people say we were lucky. They gifted us 2 goals, but then, under Lopetegui,
we gifted them 2 goals. We gifted them 2 goals, didn't we?
We gifted them 2 goals as well. Yeah. And we played. I thought we played reasonably okay, but we ran out of steam, didn't we, against Palace? But I started seeing comments about here we go and the same old. Why did he set up defensively, etc.? But you've hit the nail on the head. He didn't have that much choice, did he, really?
No.
The kind of team selection, etc. And we were running on empty.
Yeah, look, I've been doing a lot of research on Graham Potter. And look, yes, we were running on empty. In that game, that is the point. 3 games in 8 days. He had to use whatever players available. First game, his striker gets injured in 15 minutes. 45 minutes, his best winger goes off. Then he's got Todibo out for 5 weeks. So he's not even had a chance to use him yet. Mavropanos gets himself sent off. I mean, God, it's a perfect storm for him, right? A perfect storm to fail, but I don't think he's going to fail. And because I do believe the guy is intelligent. And now I've looked into, well, first of all, I've been fascinated by what he's done in all 3 games. I've got to be honest. The Palace one, he set us up the same as Palace first half. And it worked. It was boring, but it worked, because it's a game of attrition at the moment to get points. And I don't mind doing that against a team like Palace, who are notoriously boring and hard to play against. So he went like for like. And if it wasn't for the mistake early in the second half, because he didn't plan that, he didn't tell them not to pick up Eze. It was just a balls up, a communication error by the players, or a bit of intelligent play by Eze, and the keeper again has let in a shot that perhaps he should have saved.
Yeah,
because we've got a 40-year-old keeper.
Yeah, and I think the irony is the being critical of, or people were being critical of the selection by having Rodriguez in there and by having Creswell in the lineup. Yeah. Ironically for me, Creswell did actually okay. He did.
Left-sided centre back.
Yeah.
Left-sided centre back. He did all right.
And the irony is when he subbed Rodriguez off at half time in order to give us a little more attacking prowess by bringing Soler on, that's where it opened up the gap for Mateta to, Mateta found that gap because there weren't 2 holding midfielders, and ironically that's where they scored. That's where the mistake was made, and that's where they scored. So I'm going to be honest with you, when I've been kind of dissing Potter when it was being linked to us, I was kind of surely not. I I got what he did at Brighton, but look what the other managers did since then. De Zerbi and the
He
current one.
started it. He laid the foundations still.
He laid the foundation, and fair play. But I was a bit like, I don't think he'll be able to do it at West Ham. And it wasn't because of what happened at Chelsea. I've spoken to mates who are Chelsea fans, and they went, it was a shit show. There was no way he was going to succeed there. It was just an absolute nightmare.
No way. He had no chance.
But in all honesty, in the 3 games, all right, we've only won one of them. But I kind of don't mind that, because I think probably what you're alluding to, I've seen something that's made me go, oh,
yeah,
he knows how to he knows how to get something out of this team. Yeah. And I think that's the good thing, isn't it? And on top of that, he's used the youth straight away. Bodes well, no?
It does, and this is what he will do as well. You've got to look into his background and take an interest, right? A close interest, because when I did, I started to warm to the idea of getting him in, because I've been looking into him since I knew he was a candidate. When I found out what he'd done at Brighton, and I actually listened to Brighton fans, even the critical ones weren't that critical. They had really good observation about it. So I thought, oh, this guy might be actually, I'm giving him I was judging him on Chelsea as well, right? Because he looked like a quiet bloke that stood there, rabbit in the headlights. And I thought, but I'd never actually heard him talk. So I thought it's a bit, you're judging him a bit too quickly, Gary. So I looked into his background, and what happened was Chris Hughton was there. The team was going absolutely bloody nowhere.
Yeah.
At the time, he kept him up, Chris Hughton, and a lot of people said he deserved to keep his job. He didn't really, because they were sliding down the table towards relegation. He just kept him up, and then in that first season at Brighton, he had hardly anything to spend, but he had time with the squad over the summer. And what he did was he went through. He picked out. I think it was this season where he picked out like an 18-year-old goalkeeper. Put him into the team because he dominated his box. He's not afraid to play no matter how old they are. Don't be under any illusions, right? And we've got an England under 18 goalkeeper as well, by the way, whose name I forget. Yeah. So
Eric.
Oh, I can't remember.
Yep.
I'm not good on youth apart from the big ones. I need to take more of an interest now, because a lot of the people who he brought through, and he brought loads of youth through at Brighton, and he also encouraged the signing of youth from all over the world, putting them into the system, not playing them for a season, getting them used to the system and how they play, and getting them disciplined enough to play in his team. Because what he did at Brighton was work towards a destination, and it took him probably until just before he left, actually, to arrive at that destination. Now, I'd like to think that with us it'll be a little bit quicker, because he's not starting from the very bottom. He's got a few talented players in there already. It's not a bad squad when they're all fit. Missing a few parts, but it's not a bad squad when they're all fit. But he's going to have other options. Even the likes of Aguerd might come back. It'd probably suit him as well. There are certain types of player that he needs in his team. He needs a ball-playing keeper. He needs legs in midfield for sure, because it's all about possession, but not Lopetegui possession, not possession for the sake of possession. It's about developing attacks and going on, right. And they try to obviously get control of the ball in a defending, when they're defending, right? So when they transition to defence, that's what they try to do. So to try and they make the best use. He made the best use for the first 3 seasons of the resources he had available. He played like a left back, I think a centre half up front. He played a right winger at left back. He will look at an individual player and not consider that they're in a box according to their traditional position. He'll look at their strengths and their weaknesses, and he'll say, right, according to those strengths and weaknesses, I think that your strengths bring out the best in you if we put you here. And that was reflected in what he did with Somerville. Somerville, the role that he got him to play, and Kudus inside of him, who was fantastic in that first half.
Good move.
He called that so well. And then cruelty, a cruel twist of fate, one of them has to go off. Even, you got to say, even Fulkrug, he looked fit and up for it. He was running, wasn't he, for 15 minutes, and then he chased Kudus and he popped his hamstring. So what I'm saying is, this is why we've got to be patient. Don't expect things to happen straight away. But he's just had a week with the players. That's the first time he's had any time with the players, really. Probably had 5 training sessions for that 8 days, and he only arrived the day before. He didn't do what, and again, I don't want to slag Dave Moyes, but typically with managers, they arrive, there's a game the next day, they'll sit and watch it from the stands. he didn't do that. He went straight in and he made no excuses. And I love that. And he answered all the journalist questions, full answers. He explained where he thought he got it right, where he thought he got it wrong. And he did the same against Fulham as well, and the same in the last game against Palace. Doesn't hide. He comes across as honest. I think every player in the youth system is going to be buzzing because they know that if they're good enough, it doesn't matter how old they are, they're going to get their chance.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's quite interesting that he hasn't been worried about. I know you could have sort of said the FA Cup game was maybe a good tester. He could have put anyone in, but the fact that he actually put faith in Skulls, clearly demonstrated that what his intention is. Now, ironically though, when he didn't pick Skulls for the starting lineup against Fulham, he got criticised for that, and it's like, come on, mate. This was a league game, and you're gonna. It was a good platform to put Skulls on in the FA Cup, and it bodes well for the future when we're in cup competitions next season. All right, this season's gone, but so it bodes well for the youngsters. But by then, you're going to expect Skulls to be not just coming in on the cup games. By beginning of next season, you're likely to see him be maybe a regular starter if he continues to prove himself.
Yeah,
and same with, as we know, Freddie Potts, who's doing superbly well. And I know people said, well, why didn't we get him back, during this window? And you and I talked about this earlier, and I'm of the same mind. He's where he is going to bode him really well. You said it. He was player of the season for Wycombe last season, and fans player of the season. At this moment in time, he will become Portsmouth's player of the season, even though they're struggling. But apparently Portsmouth fans are saying if it weren't for him, we'd be dead and buried, in the way that he's playing.
He's doing amazing. I went to that youth game last year, at Wycombe, where the youth team finally got knocked out of it. It was freezing. Oh my God, it was freezing. But when the teams ran out, it was quite comical because you had a team of what looked like high school kids against a team of big, airy-ass men, right? And in the first half, they were we were under the cosh. They were absolutely smashing us. But it just occurred to me halfway through watching that, Freddie Potts is one of the sort of peers of this youth team. He's walked into their first team and is their best player, the player of the year. Yeah. That's got to take some character to do that, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now he does the same thing in the Championship for Portsmouth. And so that, to me, if he carries on like that and he finishes the season, gets another player of the year, he has done his apprenticeship and deserves a break in the first team, and he will get it.
I think he will. And I think it probably wouldn't have happened under Lopetegui. And it's one of the things that I've been critical about West Ham United for some time, is we always seem to be, when we get a new manager in, a new head coach in, it's because it's to fix the here and now. Now, I don't know, Potter has come in to fix the here and now, but it's refreshing that he's not only going, yes, I'm going to try and fix the here and now, but at the same time, I'm going to look forward. The irony, I remember several years ago when Moyes came back for the second time, he did this massive interview about his admiration. You might have remembered this, his admiration for the Red Bull model. I thought, wow, bloody hell, Moyes is going for the, and I got carried away, and I did a show about Moyes and the Red Bull, and I was absolutely, what are you talking about? He's never going to use the youth. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, he's talking about the youth. He's like talking about the importance of, and I genuinely thought that Moyes at some point when he fixed us was going to start using the youth, but of course he reverted sight. So now,
didn't we? Yeah.
But now we've got someone that's gone, if I think they're good enough, they're going to have a go. I'm going to put them on, and it is refreshing. Now, what I want to link this to, the news that broke today. We're not sure yet. We think he's gone.
Can I just say one more thing to the people in the chat and the people that are watching, and that is, please be patient with Potter, because you're going to have to be. What Stel just said about Skulls weren't playing the next game. Get used to that, because he will pick the players and the system, because it ain't like Moyes and Lopetegui. It's the same system, different parts. It's a different system every game, designed to take superior possession over the opposition and dominate them, right? That is what he tries to do primarily. That won't be the system he plays at the end. It will be a settled side in probably a year or two, maybe even next year. But while he's doing this and having to make a team up out of spare parts, you could be seeing new players every single week. A player that played well last week, not playing. You just got to stick with him. He knows what he's doing.
And that goes with the players like Creswell as well. If he thinks that he's going to be able to deliver something, it's not just going to be about use. He's thinking tactically, isn't he? He's trying to think,
yes, he is.
What's the best lineup for what I need to do. And ironically, and the unfortunate thing is players like Creswell have had, they've been tarnished by the whole Moyes thing. In the way that Moyes, in the way that Moyes used certain players, didn't matter whether they played well or whatever. He always used the same players. But this isn't.
You're right.
The approach of this current manager, is it? It's not like I'm going to just stick to my same old. I've got a squad of 24, 25 players, and I've got half a dozen youngsters. That's my squad.
What this guy can do, what this guy can do is make a tweak. Against Fulham, we saw him make a slight tweak, where he pushed Kudus over, allowing Wan-Bissaka to go up the pitch, totally closed the space, and then it was 0-0 and we were struggling under Kosh. That one tweak in tactics, and we're 2-0 up about 10 minutes later. It was amazing, so effective. And the players understood it. It's simple instructions. Like I said, he doesn't do a Lopetegui, who basically gave them an instruction list that long, preached it to them, you go and do that. And then when they didn't do it, he took them off. That is the way he run it. That Basque mentality of manager, you do as you're told. It's fine. It might work in Spain with Sevilla, but it didn't work over here. And I didn't think the guy was very good. He was totally inflexible. But let's not dwell on the past. We've had two managers who played a fixed system, and it didn't matter what parts they had available. They fitted them into that system. And what you just said is absolutely right. That meant that certain players looked knackered before their time because they were Cresswell was just being exposed. I'm not suggesting Cresswell should start, by the way, but I don't think he was quite finished when he was finished. As Soufal, I mean, he's looked finished for 2 seasons, but again, it's a useful part to bring on to, late in the game or something like that. It's not completely finished, but Moyes ran them all into the ground, and then Lopetegui came in and done the same bloody thing. I mean, and neither of them considered a single youth player as viable. And Moyes had the bloody FA Youth Cup winners. I know he finished by putting Earthy on. Was it Earthy?
Yeah, he brought Earthy on, and someone will tell you that out of all the West Ham managers over the past few years, he's the one that's bloodied the most youth players. But then your argument is, but play them in a game that's important than dead rubber.
Let me give you an example of how Moyes treated the youth, and I'm struggling to remember. It'd be unfair to mention the name of the player, actually, so I won't mention the name of the player. But one of the players who played in that home tie, the meaningless home tie in Europe that we all went to, what was it? Who was it against? I can't remember. But the meaningless one where he played loads of kids? Yeah,
the Europa League, the last game. Yeah, the name's gone, but it was, yeah.
Well, what actually happened there was it was one of the fullbacks. He had what I thought was the best game,
the left back, the young kid on the left side.
Yeah.
Not Ashley.
No,
you're talking about
the other side.
The other side, the guy that ended up going to Birmingham, I think it was.
Yeah. That's him. Yeah. So what actually happened was all those kids were buzzing after that because they've had their debut in a big stadium with a boisterous crowd and everything else, and we all loved it because we all get excited by kids, right? And this is how cold David Moyes was to the kids, the following day. And again, I've got this first hand from a physio that was there, right, that witnessed it, and I won't say which coaches because they're still there, went up to David Moyes and said, what did you think of so-and-so last night? And he just said, didn't even make eye contact, said not good enough, and walked away.
Our man of the match of the night.
That was it. that was how he was. And I knew when I heard that, and it came from a very, very trusted source because it was an eyewitness who's now a physio at another football club, right? So I knew it happened. It's a trustworthy source. I was hearing loads of other stories as well, and so I was just convinced he just wasn't interested. And he told you at some point in his final season, he kind of alluded to the fact you had to be 21 before you got a chance to play in the Premier League. It's gone up from what it used to be, he said. It was like it used to be 18, 19, or you can't do that now. And every player that came in had to have Premier League experience because all he wanted to do was buy the surefire, used parts from other clubs, preferably Man United. And
so let's get on to Timmy, because one of the things that we thought he was going to do was he was going to, he was dubbed the Pearl Finder. We kind of started to think he was going to start bringing in some real talent from around the world, from around leagues, especially young talent. And we were looking at this model. We've been trying to chase the irony is now we've got the ex-Brighton manager and the ex-head of scouting for Brighton. So maybe we will eventually get the Brighton model. But that's one of the things we kind of expected of Tim, isn't it? We were expecting from him that we were going to get youthful players in. And, the jury's out on Guilherme. I feel sorry for the young lad, to be quite honest with you. He's come from a foreign country over here. He probably ain't got a clue. He's still learning the language, ain't got a clue what's going on. All of a sudden, he's been linked to going to Saudi and all that sort of stuff. What was Tim Steidten on a beating to nothing? What was? Did he come in
completely? I'd like to issue an apology on behalf of me and whatever other fans believe it, and that is, I'm really sorry your first boss was David Sullivan in the UK. I'm really sorry, because that shouldn't happen to anybody coming over to this country for the first time. He was clearly onto a loser. Rumour is he was Kretinsky's man anyway, but we know Kretinsky ain't interested, right, in football, so I have my doubts on that. But anyway, he ended up there, and he was going to play a pivotal role in to our mind, he was going to be a director of football, but he never got that title. Don't forget, he was sporting director. Director of football is what we all wanted. That was someone to set the strategy, someone to hire the manager, someone to go and find the parts to fit into the strategy that he had set up for that manager. And the manager just executes. He uses the players, similar to the way Potter's going to do now. He uses the players that are give to him, and he'll make the most out of what he's given. That is the perfect scenario, and the only way probably that Tim knows how to operate. And then what happened was, the first season he's in, Sullivan decides he's going to keep Moyes. Fine, he decided to keep him. But Moyes, we know, refused to report. That was the rumour anyway. Refused to work for Tim. I doubt that now. I think that's probably Sullivan putting words in his mouth. But because I'm pretty sure he could have bloody told him to do it. No matter what he said in his contract, I think he would have done it. But anyway, that was never going to be allowed to happen. So if you remember in that first season, the tripartite agreement, where a voting system where you got Moyes, Sullivan, and Steidten. There's rumours that Noble would be in there, but that weren't the case, was it? It was just three. And so they always had the majority vote if they wanted to bring someone in. Immediately arrived, Moyes declared, well, he hasn't got any Premier League or English football experience, and then said, well, we'll only consider players with Premier League experience. So I thought, hello, something's going on here. Anyway, then he set the world alight for me, because I thought, bloody hell, we've never had someone that can do deals like this before, and we literally haven't still. Bear in mind, Arsenal wanted Kudus, and there were plenty of takers. I think Borussia Dortmund wanted Alvarez, the two best players in the Ajax team. I was on cloud nine that summer. He's taken the jet. He's gone over there. He's come back. Big smiling photo of him with Kudus and Alvarez. He's bringing them home. I just thought, how unlikely is that? How unlikely could for West Ham to get that deal done? And he repeated again this summer with Todibo, who Juventus wanted, who Man United wanted, but for some reason couldn't do that deal. But he was sought after as well, very highly rated, and one I don't think we've seen the best of yet, for sure. But those three players, I think that showed you what his great skill set was, and to my mind, it was worth having him there just to do deals. because we got no one that can do deals like that. Salthouse can't do it. Silkman can't do it. Brady sends an email. I don't know what she does, but she's getting involved in deals now. But no one goes over there with the people skills to actually sell West Ham and excite the likes of Mohamed Kudus and Alvarez, excite them to jump on a plane and come back to play for West Ham. It's never happened.
Yeah, I agree. Because look, I've been quite when Steidten arrived, I was cock a hoop. You look at what happened at Leverkusen, and you start thinking, "Wow, we're finally going to get our proper transfer strategies together. We're not going to be, we're not going to look stupid in the transfer windows." And I think the summer just gone. Put that to one side for a second and look at the first summer. Still under Moyes, but it kind of looked like there was a working relationship there, whether they wanted to or not. It kind of felt that it worked. And that's when we got Alvarez in. That's when we got Kudus in. And you thought, okay. And then you start to unravel. And the thing with me is, and it's not being critical of what's happened recently and what's happened in the last summer transfer window. It's been about, I've started to see gaps. And when I started to see gaps, I started to question Steidten. And I've got to be honest, I've been probably more critical of him recently because I started to look at it's a German guy who comes to the games who's in the Bobby Moore lower, and I know him. I actually know him through Nigel. Can't remember his name, damn it. But anyway, he said to me, have a read about Leverkusen and their background, have a read about Leverkusen and who the successful people were. And there's the sporting director there is Simon Rolfs. He was the main man. And apparently the story goes when Steidten left Leverkusen was because Steidten was overlooked for a promotion. And one of the scouts, and the name's gone, I had it written in front of me, Kim someone, is the guy that got the promotion, and Steidten got upset with that and hence left.
That's why he left.
And because of that, I started to, I'm looking at more details, and all of a sudden you start to realize Steidten did have a role, but it's the role that you've said. Steidten had a role, but he didn't have a role in bringing these identifying these players. Yeah, he was the deal maker. So he wasn't necessarily the one finding these pearls.
But isn't that why he brought his brother and Max Hahn over to do the
data-based
scouting?
Here's the irony. Max Hahn has been kept on.
I know he's done a lot of work this summer.
Moritz is gone, as Tim has. Moritz Steidten, his brother. But Max Hahn has been kept on. So I think it's quite interesting. And because I read up on that, I started to have a negative view of Steidten. Maybe I'm wrong. But I do realise the backdrop of this is not easy to be working for someone like David Sullivan. So here we are now. We've got a situation that it looks like Steidten's gone. And here we are now. We've got Carl Macauley. And what I'm really, really hoping is not in a year and a half's time, we're going to be sitting here having a similar conversation about Macauley, who is now, he's not starting with what? Technical director. Macauley's been given the role of head of recruitment. I mean, for what
do you think? What do you think the odds are of him not waking up one morning with a knife in his back? Because it happened to Newman before Steidten, right? It's going to happen because you know very well that Sullivan cannot stay out of transfer business, which is why last January he found and that was a perfectly timed mistake and publicised mistake that he made over in Norway by speaking with a wrong agent. Now, in any other club, they would have just covered that up and made it go away. Even if it happened at all. It might have been a trap, I don't know. But what happened was, that's a conspiracy theory, but it was so well timed, just before the January transfer window, that they could say they're questioning his competence. We're not involving him in his transfer window. We're going to go and sell Pablo Fornals for 7 million and buy Calvin Phillips because me and David Moyes know what we're doing. Right? So he spent the whole of that window.
Was that the worst transfer window rather than having no one?
Oh, I loved Fornals. You probably did as well. I loved him. It was like he got us. We were in his blood, and Yeah, he should have been here forever. Should have been here his career and then taken over as manager, as far as I was concerned. I thought he was amazing. You remember you down at Bournemouth when he burst into tears when he scored that goal?
And he scored the
He
goal.
was such a lovely bloke. Lovely bloke. He loved us, right? Still does.
Well, we were there for the semi-final of the Europa Conference when he went to the crowd and stood up on the thing, and sort of like, is it? He was one of us, wasn't he? I mean.
It's rare, isn't it, still, that you find a foreign player come over to this country and embrace a club and its culture and its fans so fucking full on. Yeah. And he did. And I loved him for it. It was brilliant. And then I think he would have stayed his career happily, the rest of his career. But we swapped him for probably the biggest waste of space. Because at that point, Moyes was desperate to get another Jesse Lingard. That's what he thought he was going to be.
Yeah, that's what he wanted. Right? Yeah.
And so he had to, it was one last hurrah, wasn't it? It's like, give me this player, it will set it alight, I'll be off again. And it just didn't work. He was appalling.
Yeah. It was one of the worst transfer windows. Because I remember the January before when we got no one and everyone was really upset. But, in a roundabout sort of way, I'd rather get no one than get the wrong player in.
Totally agree with Graham Potter. I totally agree because he'll sort something out. He'll sort something out. Under Moyes and Lopetegui, they're cut from the same cloth. I haven't got the right striker or a striker, so therefore that will be my excuse because for my system I need to deploy these players in these positions, and not only you haven't got me a striker, so it's the wrong striker. When the German Füllkrug was fit earlier in the season, he couldn't knock Antonio out the team.
Couldn't knock Antonio out of the team.
No. And then he got injured playing for Germany, and the rest is history, right? But if you think back to what happened to those players that we know Tim brought in, and so, again, just my theory, take it or leave it. Kudus, Moyes did not use him for 10 games. He was fully fit, just scored a hat-trick in the Champions League the week before, and then he let him on for 20 minutes against Newcastle. Yeah. Every time he brought him on for the bench, the fucker kept scoring, so he couldn't ignore him. And suddenly,
how dare he?
How dare
he keep scoring?
I couldn't believe, no one could believe he was leaving him out of the team. He's Kudus, for Christ's sake. People were making videos taking the piss out of Arsenal because we got Kudus. We knew how good he was. And then Alvarez, he went straight in the team, to be fair. And when he went straight in the team, you remember the Brighton game? Away, that we won last year?
Yeah.
What a fabulous day that was, right? What an amazing day that was. Yeah. Well, what happened there was Alvarez came in, first time I've seen him play in the flesh, and he was on his own in front of the back four. Because, unfortunately for Alvarez, he's so one-footed that he can't play next to anyone. And so whenever they try and pair him up in a double pivot, it tends to go wrong. He looks sloppy, he looks awkward. But that day, he looked like a world beater. He looked like a world beater, just playing on his own, doing his own thing, scanning the horizon for danger. Brilliant. Yeah. And what happened, by the end of last season, he had fallen out with Moyes at the Chelsea game at half-time. Again, I was there. That was bleak. Lucky I didn't get 10 that day, innit? And I spoke to Frank Lampard before the game as well. Made it an all-in-miserable day. But yeah, that happened, and then but it turns out he'd actually bought Calvin Phillips to replace Alvarez. So you're thinking, right, you didn't want to give Kudus a game. You're kind of slating Alvarez for being ill-disciplined in the press, and you brought this idiot in to replace him. They've fallen out at Chelsea, didn't play him again that season, blamed him for Chelsea, and then this season Todibo and the Brazilian. Now the Brazilian Guilherme, let's start with him, right? Do you know how good he is? Because I don't.
Look, I can only go by the information. I won't lie to you. All I've seen of him until he came to West Ham was all the videos that had been put together on YouTube. And all I remember when I researched him was he was only breaking through into Palmeiras. He was mainly playing from the subs bench, coming on from the subs bench.
Correct.
And he only scored something like 2 goals or one goal or whatever it was. But then there's a list that comes out about the world's top 20 players. I think it's the Times that does it or something like that. The world's top 20 young players in the world, and he was in that. Him and the chap that went to Real Madrid that also played for Palmeiras, etc. Hendrick, and he was, and I thought, well, okay, Well, he's in the world top 20 prospect.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, so on paper, his data must have been amazing. And that is what teams buy players on today. It's data. It must have been incredible. And, you know, you speak to people in Brazil, they've probably asked Paqueta, he probably knew him, you know. And what happened, the way I saw it is this. He came, the start of the season, he just was nowhere to be seen. He wasn't even given a place on the bench, right? This kid arrived, you know, clearly with enthusiasm, excited to be playing in the Premier League, busting their gut to get on. He was only going to be a bench player. He was one for next year, really. We knew that. Probably the wrong time to buy one for next year, but hey, let's cast that aside. Now, he came on, eventually he got a few minutes from the bench. You remember that game where he came on full of life and hit the post? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're thinking, oh, hello, he's rapid and he looks like he knows what he's doing. And then he seemed to visibly get more and more demoralised as the season went on. And so they were putting him on as basically to run the clock down. Lopetegui was. Now, so I don't know. I cannot say for certain still whether Guilherme is any good or not. But I will say one thing. The club put a press release out, not a press release, one of these leaks that they do, about a month after he joined to say, or 2 months after he joined to say, we are very disappointed in Guilherme. They also put a tweet out when Todibo couldn't get in the team of saying, oh yeah, he's soft, he's too soft for the Premier League. Turns out it was Lopetegui that said that, and that's why they had an argument. But I remember standing in the Bobby Moore stand, looking over the right-hand side. I remember Todibo, our new 40 million, I mentioned it on a show, he's literally standing there, bent over, cuddling the corner flag, and I thought, fucking, what's going on? This is weird. And then he gets the odd game, and then all he has to do is not look perfect, and Lopetegui would drop him and put Mavropanos back in. Never got a run in the side. They had a massive falling out. He didn't hit him. He went for him, but he didn't hit him. And then immediately after that incident happened, and it got publicised that he had hit him, which he hadn't. Again, a leak from the club said, oh, he's got a history of doing this, did it at his last club as well. And so, and then he fell out with Kudus, and then he fell out with Alvarez. So you can see all the players that Tim brought in, something was going on there still. Well, something was going on there.
Well, the interesting one that he fell out with is the player that is a gentle giant kind of person, is Areola.
I know, the quietest person in the dressing room.
Quietest person in the squad, who everybody loves. Yeah. And if you've managed to fuck off someone like Areola, there's something pretty damn wrong, isn't there? You know, and I didn't correlate that. I mean, I know Areola didn't come in on Steidten, but I didn't correlate all the others he fell out with because they were Tim's. I didn't.
It's only my theory, but it seems more than a coincidence. You know what I mean? Because it's just repeating itself. And they were trying to establish this narrative of everyone he bought was shit. Now, Fulkrug came in, didn't get a start. Fulkrug ended up on the point where he asked Tim, he said, get me out of here, I don't want a beer anymore. But it weren't his fault he got injured playing for Germany. It weren't his fault his hamstring popped the other week. And also, you know, as AD Hammer on 6'2" the other day put there, this is the way I understand it as well. And that is that it was Steidten that wanted to go and buy Duran. And he wanted Sullivan to bid more. And Sullivan said, because he wanted Somerville so much, and I love Somerville, this is not against a player, I love him. One of very few salt-ass buys that are any good. Well, he wanted him so much because he was a salt-ass client. He said, go and get a cheaper striker. So he did.
Right.
And who takes the ultimate... Who signs off all those players? It ain't Tim Steidten. It's David Sullivan, the football expert.
Mm-hmm. So...
And look, one more thing. For the last 2 months, there has been a sustained character assassination of Steidten, his ability, his character, and it went on until earlier this week when they probably found out he was going. They invented something new. Don't know how to spend right. And look, I hate bullying. And I think that was unfair because the only thing you've got as a director of football is your reputation. And I think West Ham tried to fucking destroy it.
Yeah. I get a lot of that. And it sort of it's confusing my head a little bit because I kind of set my standout in the sense of what I knew about him from Leverkusen, and I kind of made my mind up about Steidten well before the shit was hitting the fan with him.
Yeah.
But having said that, I get it. I get what you've just said about, how he's been set up to fail. And then it goes back to the question of, we now have Macauley, who's got a great reputation,
Fantastic.
for the kind of players
Yes.
that he attracts. And you
Yes.
think about Casado that he brought in, and Cucurella he brought in, who then both went to Chelsea when Potter and Macauley went there, and a whole host of other names that are kind of like, you look at some of the names that he got through. And the one good thing that they did at Brighton, of course, was get players in at a reasonable price and then sell them on for a big profit. And
They did two things, Stel. They did two things. Number one is they buy a young player and they give them back on loan to play the rest of the season in their league. They'd bring them over the next season when they're a little bit old, a little bit more mature, and then they would put them into their system. And if it's a really young player, put them into the system, train with a team. Not like no one's excluded. It ain't just the first team. They learn to play the system, this destination system that he's aiming for. When they're ready and they can play a functional part of that system properly, he will have no hesitation in using them.
Yeah, and I think that's the good thing. I think that's so. I think now, ironically, going back to the young players that we got, not only our academy players, but I've actually got hope for Guilherme. I think if anything, we're going to now see if he is worthy or not. Now, I know there's been talk about trying to sell him, etc., but Potter has come out and he's made it very clear no one's leaving.
I feel so sorry for the kid. I feel so sorry for the kid and Debo. I'd love them to both do well. Not to say fuck you, Sullivan, because they're West Ham players. It's not their fault what route they came in, and they shouldn't have been victimised in this way. Give them a fair crack.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think Guilherme. I mean, I've just seen that comment there by Jack saying not sure about Guilherme, but I think he will get a fair crack at the whip, and if I think he will get more game time. I think he's already got more game time under Potter. So, given that, with Potter and now he's got Macauley in. We've already sort of discussed quite a bit about Potter and your thoughts on that. Potter, a lot of people are saying, because Potter is not the Sullivan's choice, that he won't be, even though he's signed a 2.5-year deal, he won't be here for the long term. But the fact that he's managed to get Macauley in seems to suggest to me that he's here probably longer than the 2.5 years that he's signed up for. If he can demonstrate in the next 6 months or until the end of the season that there's a good foundation here, and then really goes for it in the summer. Now, I think a lot of people are expecting, we're going to talk about this transfer window in a minute, but I think a lot of people are expecting in the summer transfer window, there's going to be yet a big transformation. But I think there will be, but not in the way that people are expecting. I don't think Potter is going to go out and say, I'm going to buy 9 or 10 players. I think he's going to say, I need 5, but I now know I've got 3 or 4 from the academy that I will incorporate. And have we got used to, and this is the other thing that I've been critical of, the continuity at West Ham United. I sort of said it earlier on about, you get one manager
should have fixed it. Steidten should have been able to fix that if he had been able to establish that system. That's why you were getting excited about it. Why I was getting excited about it.
Yeah.
But it's replaced the squad with every new manager, isn't it?
And then every new manager wants their different players. So therefore, have we stumbled on now a manager that is going to be able to have some consistency where we can get to the point of, a bit like a lot of the other clubs are now doing, is they're not going out and buying 10 players, established Premier League clubs. You expect a club that comes from the Championship, has been promoted into the Premier League, and they go, we need to strengthen. And yes, you expect them to go out and buy 10 players. But we've been doing that as a Premier League club. Whereas a lot of other clubs in the Premier League have gone, we've got our established foundation, we'll add 3 or 2 or maximum 4 players in order to boot, we'll sell a few and we'll buy a few. I'm hoping now, that it may take a couple of summers, but I'm hoping now that Potter will demonstrate that he's got the foundation, and maybe after this coming summer, it'll be a tweak rather than continual revolution of the squad. I don't know if you think that the same thing or not.
I do. I absolutely do. There's no way he's going to want to bring players in en masse over the summer. In fact, what he'll probably do is bring in a couple of functional parts that he needs, and then you'll probably see a lot more Guillermes, coming in. Players that they've identified with data, they've been and watched, they fancy, and they think if they bring them into this system, they will come through and pay dividends a year later. I don't mind building for the future, right? The fact that Potter's only got a 2.5 year contract, that's no good. That's typical Sullivan, right? He needs longer than that. And you know what they do? They wait for the contract to run out before they renew it, right? That won't work with him because someone else will snap him up. If he gets this job right, by the time that 2.5 year contract runs out, he ain't going to be ours anymore. And we're going to have to start again. And I know I'm getting ahead of myself with this. Yeah, I know I'm getting ahead of myself with this, but like you just said, if you're building something for the long term, you've got to have security. You've got to get behind the manager and believe in the manager. I just wish we didn't have. When I started my channel this time around, I said, I don't want to be like, I don't want to just react to stuff. I just want to consider it and sort of, let's get behind the manager. Lopetegui, didn't want him, but let's get behind him. We tried. And the intent was there, and it just ran out. It was a few games short of him leaving. But this time, I wholeheartedly believe in this manager. And I actually wanted him. He was definitely my choice from what was available. And, from what he did at Brighton, he was in a situation at Brighton where every time a player was, it created these players with that Cole, what's his name? He created these players, bought them through, made them expensive assets, sold them on, at start again, constantly recycling the squad. Now, we will do that at West Ham, just not quite as much. He will have a chance to hold on to some of them, right? But this can get us to the point where we've got a really brilliant, not just an 11 or a couple on the bench, an actual squad, a quality young squad. We've got the oldest squad in the Premier League again, older than last year, believe it or not.
I know.
It's got to stop. It's got to stop.
The irony.
You know who's joining, by the way? Andre Silva's definitely signing for us. You know that.
Well, we'll get on to current transfer news in a moment, but it won't surprise me if Andre Silva signs. Yeah. But it's going to be interesting what happens. Let's get on to it because I know everybody. Would it surprise you if we don't sign anybody? I know no. The fan base will be apoplectic if that happens. But would it surprise you if we didn't sign anybody in this window?
Well, look, firstly, you know as well as I do, because Sean told me as he told you, and that is Sullivan doesn't care what the fans think.
Yeah.
Don't care. The only thing Sullivan cares about is vanity. And vanity is around the media and being badly treated in the media. Can I just say, I've got this secret little theory, which probably ain't true. But when the minute Steidten stepped onto those jets and took those photographs and he was being seen as the bright new successful face of West Ham, I reckon that's the point where Sullivan said, he's got to go.
I think you're
taking my limelight. Taking my limelight away from me.
Right. Yeah.
I reckon it's as simple as that. Just saying. Yeah. Right. So sorry, I went off track. What was the?
No, but I think you might have a point there. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So sorry. Remind me.
Yeah. So, would it surprise you if we didn't sign anyone?
Not at all. I said at the beginning, I've said it a couple of times already on my shows. What I said was the most I expected was a couple of last minute, we tried Will Salterhouse loans or permanent deals like Andre Silva, who is a Salterhouse client. He's 5 years past his best. He doesn't score goals anymore. He might on his debut look brilliant, and we're going, what a player we got. 2 games later, he'd be injured, right? And this to me reminds me of the Danny Ings deal because it'll be a loan with obligation. We wasted over 30 million on Danny Ings, and nothing against Danny Ings. He's a good bloke, right?
But that's half the money we could have spent on bringing Duran.
And they talk about Steidten wasting money. I mean, Vlasic, 30 million. Hugill, Scamacca, great player but wrong player. Haller, great player, wrong player. So many times they seem to have been doing deals that were convenient for God knows who, I can guess, but convenient for God knows who, beneficial.
Yeah,
didn't matter what parts the team wanted. Moyes and Lopetegui would always nod that along, and sort of because they were in the tent, right? Whereas I think that's where old Steidten was a bit of a problem. But anyway, go back to the point. No, I don't think that we will sign anybody other than probably. I feel like we're going to get Andre Silva on loan, and if I'm being honest, I think probably that geezer from Forest.
I won you.
Yeah.
The striker.
Yeah.
Well, I think, ironically, it's more important for us to get a defender in. So I know, is it Webster that we've been linked to yesterday? Adam Webster. So my theory is, I think fans are going to be disappointed. Not that we're not going to get anyone in, but I think fans are going to be disappointed. Do you remember when we got some player called Craig something, who everybody really was disgusted by?
Just the best,
Dawson, wasn't it?
Just the best pound for pound signing ever.
Wasn't he just?
Yeah.
Wasn't he just? And do you remember the fan base going into absolute overdrive when we signed Wayne Dawson?
Yeah.
And we ended up creating a song for him. It was a shit song, but we ended up creating a song for him.
But he was Roy the Rovers, wasn't he? I mean, that was just so brilliant. We all thought he was just.
We thought he was going to be Roger,
Roger
the relegator Johnson again, didn't we?
Yeah, but then we're sort of moving through Europe. He's crashing in corners with his head. He's running. They tackle him. He goes down. He gets up. He carries on. He's like, it's like a war film.
He scored at Lyon. The header he scored at Lyon at their ground. When he, it was a Fornals corner, and the way he looked as if to say, "Well, that's what I do."
Yeah.
What else did you expect?
Yeah.
So, can Adam Webster become a Craig Dawson for Potter?
Listen, he's going to be. He knows him, doesn't he? He knows him, doesn't he? He used to play for him.
He knows him. He played for Potter at Brighton. Let me rephrase the question. Would it be a solid pair of hands for someone like Potter to just stabilise our defence? And would you be upset if we ended up getting a player like Webster in?
No, not at all. I think a seasoned professional at centre half. I've always said centre halves. If you want a centre half, a solid centre half, go even look in the Championship. You're going to find good, dogged centre halves that can play in a disciplined system. And what Kilman needs, and we've got to make Kilman good because we've got him for 7 years.
He needs someone solid next to him.
He does. That's my theory as well. That is my theory as well, because he's a good player. And early in the season, he had about the first 8 or 9 games, he was outstanding. He didn't suddenly turn rubbish. And we were all saying, 40 million is looking a bit of a bargain now. And now people are saying what they were saying originally. We wasted money on Kilman. I don't believe we did. And I don't believe we wasted money on Todibo either.
Yeah, I'm worried about Kilman, but I'm going to put it down to the fact that he hasn't had a solid defender next to him. I agree with you about Todibo. I think Todibo will come good. I think we've got a Rolls Royce of a player there who just needs the engine.
You've got to stop taking words out of my mouth, because I was going to say exactly the same thing, because you've seen little flashes of cream, haven't you? Where he's just looked sublime, this guy.
He has looked sublime.
And unfortunately, he played in a defence where they're under the cosh. He ain't fit, and he made a few mistakes. So what, right? It's not like Mavropanos level, is it?
Well, let's be honest. Mavropanos is not for the Premier League. I'd love to think that he is. Yeah, but he's not. And
I'll tell you where he could play. I reckon Mavropanos could play because he's actually got a fair amount of pace. He could play as a right back, and he might even get away with a wing back. He's got all the energy in the world. He's got the stamina. As a fullback, can you imagine trying to go round that big?
Yeah, no, it'd be difficult. It'd be difficult. Yeah. But then we're overloading ourselves on that right-hand side because we've got Wan-Bissaka, we've got. I'm not including Soufal. I think Soufal will go, but if you use Mavropanos there, Wan-Bissaka, and then you got Somerville that cleverly, as you said earlier in the show, Potter used him on the right-hand side. Then you got Kudus. I mean, you're stacking them up on that side, aren't you?
I don't think Wan-Bissaka in the final system, the destination system, as I call it, right? Then that ain't going to feature Wan-Bissaka on the right or what's his name, or Sufal, or the Greek. I forget his name. What's his name?
Dinos
Mavropanos. I'm not gonna. I don't. Funny age still. I don't think that's going to be the system. It's going to be very similar to what young Jimmy Somerville played. That sort of player, a whippet, because he plays with a back three and with a goalkeeper who's really good with his feet, and with plenty of cover from defence. Because when defending, they rely on trying to get the ball back and get possession. They hardly get exposed, and the three that play at the back tend to be able to cover wide as well, right? So they don't leave loads of big open gaps. So I think that is what he'll go with eventually. It's pace. Pace panics, and we haven't. How long since we've had pace? It's been a while, hasn't it?
The irony is we've got players with pace in the team. We're just not using them with pace.
But the point is, don't think that I tried to allude to this earlier, don't think that he needs a fullback or a wing back. He'll think nothing about playing a winger there, like he did with Somerville, because he develops players. He gives them simple instructions. I was honestly, it's the best part of the season still. That first half against Villa, I loved it.
I thought it was great. It was exciting. It was cold. Yeah. But it was exciting, and I enjoyed it. And I was absolutely really, really gutted that these, I just thought that corner that never was.
I know,
the corner that never was.
We were right behind that. We were right behind that. We knew it had gone straight out. I know.
And the irony, the player that scuffed it is the player that bloody well scored.
And Paqueta had such a good game, and then he let himself down on that corner, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah,
typical.
And that was one of his best games, Paqueta. I mean, this is another thing, isn't it? That Potter is going to learn how to get the best out. I mean, I kind of said it. I've not seen Paqueta as good as he's been in the last few games.
No.
For the last year and a half. We know what we're going to get from Bowen when he comes back. And all he's got to do now is got to work on. We saw Somerville before he got injured doing really well. He's just got to get the best out of Kudus now as well. And then all of a sudden, we could be rocking in the second half of this season.
That's what he's struggling with, is to find the right position for Kudus. But Paqueta was definitely back. The Fulham game, I was in the posh seats for the Fulham game. And there was one moment that I just saw where second half, midway through the second half, this was the old nutter back again. It's like the ball went out for a throw-in and the referee overruled the linesman and gave a throw-in, and Paqueta was down and crouched down going, yes, like that, celebrating it. It's just like brilliant. It's like he's back. You remember the Paqueta that looked up and laughed at the fans? It was absolutely brilliant. He's back.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk transfers. We've already, for those of you who have joined late, we've already covered the John Duran issue. We've kind of agreed that it wasn't a phantom bid. I genuinely thought it was a phantom bid, but it was a bid, but it was just a bid that was just never going to get accepted. And of course, we've got other players that there's several players. Let's start with, because he's the man of the moment at this moment in time, is Brian Brobby of
Mr. Brobby.
And everyone's going, is Noel Edmonds involved in the deal? For Mr. Blobby to come to West Ham. And yes, I've already done it. You add another R in there, and it's, if we get him, it's daylight robbery.
Daylight robbery.
All done. So
the puns right themselves.
But I've also done another one where I said maybe we've got a silver lining coming up, but we won't do that one either. No. That's my jokes for the night, people. Brian Bob. Now we've heard so many different. I mean, I think the strangest one. Let's go off him for. Let's just take him off for a second, and let's get where is it? Let's get him up. Ezekiel Banzuzi. Now Ezekiel Banzuzi, according to Sky, in the middle of the week, was done and dusted. Sky put it out there and said, "Done and dusted." And then the senior source was asked, and the senior source went, "Who?" No, he didn't say who, but he went, "No, nothing done." And what's going on with social media?
I know what went on with this one. Right? Is that Karen Brady sent an email a couple of weeks ago with a take it or leave it offer. That's what I'm assuming she did. I doubt she picked up the phone because she's a baroness. So that's what happened. Literally, they said take it or leave it. They said leave it, and that was it. That was 2 weeks ago. It was a non-story, an absolute non-story. In response to your other question, what's going on with social media? I don't know, but it's driving me mad. Honestly, it's flooded with the same crap. I went on News Now the other day. Was talking about my work day. I didn't have much time. I'm trying to get content, so as I'm put a transfer show together, find out who I've got to investigate. Yeah, as you do. Well, I looked at News Now. It was literally 2 news sites. You know they are. It was the same stories from pretty much from 2 news sites, about 30 articles. I read one of them, and it was referencing the other news site.
Yeah, and it fucks me right off because I end up, and now I'm trying to skim read them. Because it annoys me that I'm reading it and I go, oh, that sounds familiar. Oh, yeah, I know why that sounds familiar because it's copy and paste from the news story they put out about 10 minutes before. You know,
the body of each article, about 4 pages of guff to get you templated guff to get you to read adverts, right?
Yeah,
and then down the bottom you got like 1 paragraph or half a paragraph, which is the actual story.
And it's a 2-liner.
Yeah, well, it wasn't one of those 2, but it was like Inside Football or Football Insider. That's what it was, Football Insider. Yeah. I read, it said, it had this headline, this clickbait. I clicked on the clickbait, right? I should know better. It said, Bowen, terrible news for Bowen or something like that. I thought, God, he's got injured again. I clicked it. I thought, you mug, because I went down about 5 pages of ads, pop-ups, everything, right? Got to the bottom, and guess what the story consisted of?
Go on.
Jared Bowen sent a tweet after West Ham beat Fulham that said, 3 points, well done, lads. And at that point, still, I cracked. So I wanted to smash my laptop up still. That's how bad it got.
If we're falling for it, imagine how the poor fan base must be feeling.
We've got to sort this out because there are a few people doing this. I know who most of them are. We ain't going to stop them because this is how they generate their money, and they're going after saturating the fan base. You go, there are a couple of accounts on Twitter that you cannot get away from because, and we know how to do it. It's simple automation. What they do is they tweet it out. They've got other accounts that retweet it. Blah, 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 blah. So no matter what you're doing, who you block, you're going to see it because someone's going to retweet it and whatever else. Well, there's only one way to fix that, Stel, and that is to fight fire with fire. We're going to have to put out a counter narrative, saturate West Ham social media with a counter narrative.
Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't do that to West Ham fans. I think it's taking the piss out of West Ham fans to do that. And that is what I think they're doing.
So going on to, I mean, that was the Banzuzi deal. So Robbie, we know there is actual real interest. We know that. We're also aware tonight that apparently other clubs are now beginning to sniff around, especially our North London neighbours. And my understanding is that this deal is very close, but it's the whole issue of they don't want to loan him out unless it's an obligation to buy, or they just want a straight deal right now. Now, they're asking for, and this is the interesting thing, because my understanding is that Newcastle bid 40 million for him in the summer that was turned down, but they're quite happy to receive 30 million if the deal is done now, or if there's a loan with an obligation to buy. Now, I've looked up on Robbie. He's not having a great season at the moment, but he's had a great 2 seasons before. He scored something like 20 odd goals last season, 14 the one before, 22 years of age. I think he turns 23 next week or something. I've described him as an Antonio with skill. And I know,
let's be fair to him. Let's be fair to him, right? People will look up the stats and they'll go, oh, he had 1 good season and turned shit, right? That's what they'll say. However, there's more to it than meets the eye sometimes, because a player, especially a striker, can be playing in a team that he clicks with one season. He could be in a front 2, and then he might be playing up front on his own the following season. His supply line might have gone, whoever was feeding him the balls, right? Imagine if you're Ajax and Kudus leaves, for instance, and they are a selling club, Ajax, unfortunately. Well, so I'm not going to, without looking into it, I ain't going to judge him on that. I'm more interested in his physical attributes and what he's good at, and the data around him about what he gets up to in a game. Because as a striker, he needs someone who's going to hold the ball up. Potter, definitely, and bring other players into play. He does need someone preferably who's mobile, because at Brighton he didn't really have those until right at the end. He played with a load of really crap strikers. He's physical, he's strong. I doubt his neck is as big as that guy from Forest, but it looks pretty big. And he does look like he can pull it about a bit, doesn't he? Has he got an injury record? That's the only thing I don't know.
He does. It's not great, but it's not the worst. He picks up little niggles. This is the thing. I mean, he's only 22, and he's got a bit of a history of he's had missed 5 games. I think last season he missed 10 games, and yet last season missing 10 games, he still scored 22 goals in total, which not a bad return. And I know
Great
people
return.
are going to say it's the Dutch league and all that sort of stuff. I know. But he picks up quite a few niggles, and I think when you think about the Premier League being a lot faster, a lot quicker, more demanding, I guess, in a physical way, there's the fear that he could end up picking up more niggles, more knocks. And I guess that is the fear. Now, I've come to the point, honestly, Gary, every time I research a player, the first thing I now go and look for on Transfer Market is their injury record.
Yeah,
I look at the stats, go into the injury record, and I go, and I'm like, how good or bad is this? And there's a relief every now and again when you look at someone's injury record and there's hardly anything there. He had 3 days off because he had COVID 4 years ago. I'll take him.
Oh, you saw that one as well, did you? That was brilliant. Yeah, it was clean, wasn't it? Clean bill of health, clean MOT. Look, I don't mind about minor niggles still. When I talk injuries, especially because you remember back, what was Antonio like the first few seasons until he learned to manage his hamstrings?
He hardly had injuries, and then his hammies started, and then that was it. He
was terrible for a few years, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Because the hamstring problems, recurring hamstring problems, and then there was some kind of different type of exercise that he started doing, yoga, I think.
Apparently, he changed his diet as well, or something like that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But he's, so I don't worry about that, because Antonio, is a big, strong lad. I don't think he's ever had until now, a serious knee injury or anything like that, has he?
No, this is it. He's had nothing major.
Nothing structural.
This is for Mark. Mark, I got that photo up, by the way, mate. It's about the best I could do on my research since last lunchtime. But no, he's had nothing major that I could see. But it's the niggles. It's the 5 games off here, the 2 games off there, the 3 games off here, that sort of thing. I mean, if you compare him to the other player that we apparently have a backup interest in Andre Silva. I mean, Andre Silva missed the whole of last year with a calf muscle strain or tear or whatever it was, and that's serious. And when a player has picked up an injury like that, which has kept you out for a whole calendar year, then they're never going to get over it. And they're the sort of players that we need to kind of avoid. So I'm kind of, with Robbie, I'm kind of erring on the side. I'm not erring on the side of caution with them. I think maybe we should just, if he's that much in demand, apparently Arsenal have been interested in him. Apparently, like I said, Newcastle made a bid for him in the summer. I know Spurs was sniffing around, but we've heard later on tonight that apparently they're not going to make a bid for him. So I'll take the gamble. Because you're not going to get a player that's going to be 100% injury free.
No, I mean, the link with Spurs, that sort of thing could be put out by us because we're in for him and we want to make it look like we're competing with Spurs and we're going to win. Or it could be put out by the agent who wants to promote more interest.
To build up a bit of interest,
Or even the club who want to drive up the price. So many people that can do it. I just can't find his injury record at the moment. But what you said is what it is, that is absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned, as long as he's got the raw materials. And I'm sure, I hope that Potter and Kyle, and then Carl, what's his name, have had some involvement, and Max Hahn, who is apparently staying the data guy, like you said. So if they're all working together and the data looks good, he's known, they've checked the references, they've done their due diligence, and he's a player that can fit into the Potter team. He knows how he can use him. It's a no-brainer. Get him. Just go and get him. For Christ's sake, go and get him. Because Andre Silva is definitely joining. You know, they say as a backup, but he's definitely joining as a backup or the main striker. You know that. You know he's coming.
Yeah, well, I mean, apparently, Lee's actually correct that apparently he has picked up another knock.
Yeah. We're gonna go one better this time. We're gonna sign an actual injured player
whilst he's still injured.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Oh, you're injured. That's all right, mate. Go on, come on. West Ham.
Another 30 million. It's another Ings deal waiting to have another 30 million down the toilet. I'm telling you now.
So, based on what you said, would Robbie be the sort of player that you'd be happy to see come to West Ham?
If the manager's happy, I'm happy. If he's got the physical attributes, like he's big, strong, can play that Antonio role, he's going to have to play up front by himself, and has got some pace, which is what Antonio, even before the car accident, started to lose a bit. 22 years old, he's still going to be at peak of his, physical performance.
Then let me
he's only going to get better.
Then let me throw another one at you, because there's another one that's currently injured, and that, of course, is Evan Ferguson. Now, I've got to be honest with you. In comparison to Brobby, if I had a choice between Brobby and Ferguson, I'd go for Brobby. And
yes, I agree.
I think for me, I think Evan Ferguson is a raw talent. I certainly don't think he's worth the money that Brighton have been talking about, anything up to between 40, 60 million, to be quite honest with you. His injury record is kind of a little bit worse. It's they're quite big injuries rather than
serious ankle injury, didn't he, last season?
Yeah, and there's been a lot of noise about him. Look, I can get the link because it's Brighton, and that's where Potter's come from, etc. So he'll be aware of him. I think it was Potter that gave him his debut.
Yeah, he knows him.
What's your thoughts on Ferguson? Would he be? Is he another gamble? I mean, a bit like Brobby, a few injuries, etc. Would he be the gamble that you'd go for, or do you think it's right? Okay,
no, because Brighton are insisting on selling him or a loan with obligation. That means they're trying to get shot. He's had that serious ankle injury. He's had a recurrence of the ankle injury. As far as I'm concerned, with something like that, that is a very delicate part of the body with lots of small bones and muscles and everything else, and until it's proven that there's nothing there, and you know what it's like, he could be just recovering from an injury, because he was injured as well, and probably still is, but the inflammation goes down, they go have the medical, everything looks fine, he starts training and it gets inflamed again. 60 million is far too much for a player with that hanging over his head. I'd have a go at him for 30 without a shadow of a doubt. But I think, again, I agree with you. Brobby is the better option out of two for me at the moment. What about, though? I'll give you another name. This was Gio said this last night on our show, in the chat, by the way. He said Delap, and that is who me and Chris raised it.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
But he's not coming this summer. He's not coming this in this window. But I think the only way we can get. I wholeheartedly agree. I think if you ask any West Ham fan, if you lined up all the available young strikers at this moment in time and said, who would you pick? Everyone would say immediately Delap, and I agree. I think the concern about Delap is whether Ipswich will let him go or not. That's the problem. Because if they stay up, there's no way they're letting him go unless Delap is, pushing for a move himself. If they go down, there's going to be a massive bidding war for him. He would be the sort of player that Ipswich, even if they go down. Do you remember when we went down and we had to sell all our young players because we had to, and we ended up selling Joe Cole and everybody else for next to nothing? I think we're in a different age now where Delap, if Ipswich go down, I think Ipswich will go, you want him? 40 mil, 45 mil, whatever it might be.
I think it depends how desperate they are still, and how much they expect to go down, because at the moment they don't really look like staying up.
No.
I think it's a long shot them staying up. I think a decent offer I'm inclined to think they'd get it. It might be more than 40 million, but I think he's that good. I'd pay 50 for him easy, because I've seen him in the flesh. I've watched him on telly. I think he's got everything, that kid.
Yeah.
And
he would be Potter's dream, wouldn't he, to fit into the system that he's trying to adopt, without a doubt. But I think Paul's right. I think there'll be so many clubs in for Delap.
Yeah, he's right.
That
Yeah, Paul's
we'd
right.
be buried in the mire. You know, it'd be like, you know, how much can we outbid it? You know, if a club like, I don't know, Arsenal, they want a striker. If they turn around and go, there's 60 million for him, what are we going to do? You know, this is the unfortunate thing. So we're in between a rock and a hard place with someone like Delap. If they stay up, there's no way they're selling him. If they go down, there's going to be a massive bidding war for him. But I do agree that Delap, you know, someone asked earlier on, you know, give us a name of a young striker that you go for, and he would be on, you know, he'd be on everyone's
100%.
lips without a doubt. Yeah, I agree. Let's go to another English player. Because there's a lot of talk about him at the moment, and
Angel
that, of course,
Gomez.
is Angel Gomez. Now, look, people have been pairing it up, and I've been saying this. I've been consistent with this. You may have a different view on what I have on this with him and with Jonathan David. Final months of their contracts, playing in Champions League with Lille. Jonathan David has made it abundantly clear last summer, when everybody was trying to bid for him, that he will walk away from Lille, even though they don't want him to. He will walk away from Lille, and he will be looking to sign on to a club that's not only going to offer him Champions League football, but also going to offer him a massive signing on fee and a massive wage. So Jonathan David, for us, unfortunately, even though we are massive, he's out of our reach. Angel Gomez.
Still, we could have bought Jonathan David last summer for 20 million. That's what I was told. But that aside, you're right. And his agent actually repeated that message to Lille a couple of months ago. He said, "We're not going anywhere. We're waiting till the summer. We're going to cash in." But the thing is, what you said about him demanding a massive signing on fee and all that, well, that's all right, isn't it? I mean, so what? That's better than paying.
Not suggesting at all that there's anything wrong with it, but I guess what I'm saying is it's in his hands.
Yes, but that could have been a Wan-Bissaka style signing, you know, where you get a really good player. I love Wan-Bissaka. I know he's unorthodox. I don't know how he'll fit in the team in future, but I love him. You know, but for 15 million, that was ridiculous. We got him for, and apparently Angel Gomez. West Ham could get him. They could get him. He's not asking for a fortune, but what he is asking for is a 4-year deal plus a 1-year year extension, and he would come to West Ham.
But I think there's much more chance of getting him than there is of getting Jonathan David. I agree. But again, I think a lot of it's a bit like the Delap situation where. I mean, he can sign a pre-contract agreement now, you know, outside of France. He can agree a deal. And I know that from my understanding is we are trying to get a deal put together for him. But he would be a no-brainer.
If it's the right deal, Stel, he will come.
He would be a no-brainer, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would. It's another Wan-Bissaka deal. You're getting a lot of quality there for bugger all money. What are you going to give Lille? 5-10 million to shut him up?
Yeah.
Go on, stay quiet. Go and take that little brown bag of cash. I would also be looking at legs in midfield in this window as well. And I know one of them started back in the first team now, but there was 2 loans from Chelsea that were being rumoured, Chukwuemeka and
Chukwuemeka and Dewsbury Hall, and that's gone a bit quiet. I mean, interestingly, Chukwuemeka again, when Potter was at Chelsea, played him, didn't he? He was playing.
I like him a lot, and I would imagine that with Kyle, that's just come from Chelsea, and Potter being at Chelsea and Brighton, there's so much like common ground there. And I know it sometimes makes a convenient news story, but I like to think there's something in it because I think he's exactly the profile of player we need.
I agree. He's solid. It's interesting when we were talking about Banzuzi and you know how everyone was bigging him up without. I won't lie to you. I didn't hear of it. I hadn't heard of him until this week, to be honest with you. But then we've got Chukwuemeka that we know. I think the only drawback, maybe possible drawback, is what Chelsea are asking for. Because my understanding is he's on 100 grand a week. You know, he's only 21. He's on 100 grand a week, and they want 40 million for him, which could be the thing that's going to put clubs off. I, I,
Sorry,
I
say
think
that.
he's
Who
good.
wants 40 million? Who wants 40 million?
Chelsea, apparently.
For Chukwuemeka. Yeah, yeah,
Chukwuemeka.
yeah. I heard it was, yeah, that's right. You're 40 and we want to pay 30, I think is
Yeah,
the thing,
something
isn't
like
it?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
10 million apart. I think he's more
yeah.
like 30 million. I think we're right on this occasion.
Yeah, I think if he's the sort of player that I'd be happy with, Gomez is the sort of player.
Be delighted.
The two
Yeah.
of them would actually revolution, and then Potts coming
Yeah.
back as well. All of a sudden your average age has gone from there to something like around here. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but
You could, yeah, it'd be brilliant. Imagine having like two West Ham youth players in the midfield, and because I don't know whether Paquette will be there next year or not. I don't know whether Kudus will
we
be there
don't know
next year or not.
until the summer,
No,
do we? We don't.
No, we don't.
Yeah,
But that is potentially the glorious future, right?
it is. It is. Rex is saying Gomez is the same size as the beauty of midfielder. He
It's
is.
fine. Yeah, Epic was taking the mick out of him just now. He said he's 5 foot. Don't be heightist, Epic. That's a terrible thing to say.
So, we've just got to wait now, haven't we? I mean,
That's my strategy.
on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think the Brobby deal is?
Sullivan through Sean, the updates have come out. Nothing's happening. I take that at face value. Even if something was happening, he wouldn't tell him, especially if he really wanted to get the deal done. I'm just going to wait and see. And when it's going to get done, then I'll take a deep interest in the player. And I think it's going to be really positive from what I've just looked at. But when we sign a player, it's always bloody positive when I review them anyway. I'll never review them negatively. I might do it before they join, but I don't do it after they join. No way. I want
Even if it was there is another striker on Salthouse's books. You do know that, don't you?
Who? Come on, don't do this to me. Go on.
Well, he plays in the Premier League.
Oh, come on.
He's over 30.
Michael Antonio. He's on his books, isn't he? Him and Crosswell are on his books.
His best mate on the podcast, Callum Wilson.
Oh no! No! I want us to stop signing players at that end of their career, and I'm not even joking. Right?
Got it.
I'm sick of it.
I know, mate. Look, I think with Macauley coming in, I think we're going to put a stop to that.
Yeah. I hope so.
It won't surprise because guess what? He's earmarked to come back from injury. I think this weekend. I think he's earmarked to come back from his injury this weekend. It will not surprise me in the slightest if we put in a last minute deal.
I'll tell you what,
6-month deal for Callum Wilson.
Yeah, but Stell and Gary are old. That's oldest. Come on, they're having dig at us in there. Right. Let me tell you what I think. That is a fabulous coincidence that Callum Wilson is coming back just before the window shuts.
Isn't it?
That's amazing. Such
it,
brilliant timing for Will Salthouse to do a loan with obligation and possibly line Callum Wilson up for 150 grand a week, 3-year deal at West Ham.
Thankfully, he is in the last 6 months of his contract at Newcastle, which means there's no obligation. But it could be another Ings situation where we go to him. Come to us. If you do all right, we'll give you a 2-year deal.
Whoever decided to, and we know it was, whoever decided to sign Danny Ings, who was 3 years, 4 years past his best and knackered and not scoring goals, and he can't play up front on his own, to go into a team where you have to play up on front on your own. He had no pace, not finishing anymore. So we give him 125 grand a week and a 3-year deal and pay 18 million for him. That just feels fishy to me.
Hang on a minute. He had a good game against
Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest.
It was Forest away, wasn't it?
Yeah, he scored 2, didn't he?
Thought, what's going on here?
Well, what happened with Forest that season is every time they let the first goal in, they let another one in shortly after, and they kept getting slaughtered. And he took advantage of that situation to fool us into thinking he was good. No, I like Danny Ings as a professional. He's obviously a lovely bloke. All the squad like him. We'd sing his name because we know he's trying, but it's not his fault. He's burnt out.
It's not his fault. And why on earth? Because people were saying, why are we not selling Danny Ings? Danny Ings is not stupid.
Who's buying?
We tried to sell Danny Ings in the summer, and he went, "I'm
Yeah.
not going anywhere, mate. I'm getting
No.
125 grand a week, and I've got a year left of this."
He turned Southampton down. Was it 1 year or two? Was it 2 years we signed him for? Two, wasn't it? Or three?
Well, he's in the last year of his contract, so it must have been 3. He's been with us 3 seasons.
Yeah. So look, let me tell you, right? It's even worse. 18 million plus 125 grand a week over 3 years is 37 million we burnt on a knackered player who was good a few years ago. So watch out if Callum Wilson pops up on the news feeds. We know Andre Geezer's coming already. He's definitely coming. I've accepted it. But it can only be a loan, a 6-month loan.
Imagine on Monday morning we've got both of them signing at the same time, holding up the West Ham shirts.
Yeah. Oh, it's so tragic. I mean, Wilson can't play 2 games in a row without getting injured.
He can't play 2 games in a month, mate, let alone 2 games in a row. But he's perfect for us.
Oh,
32 years old, injury prone, you know.
Yeah. Imagine that if Graham Potter next season chooses a front 2 and we've got Antonio, his first game back since his serious car accident, just learned to walk again, on the pitch next to Callum Wilson, the podcast duo up front together. They both hobble off, wouldn't they? Both hobble off injured.
Yeah, they'll probably clash into each other.
If that guy, honestly, I'm very, very calm these days, but I would absolutely lose my
I genuinely don't think it will happen, but it is quite interesting that it's something that you could just see happening. That's the thing. Okay, let's wrap up. So we think that Robbie is coming. Yes. Apparently he's already in London. Apparently he was seen.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. So he was seen at the Premier Inn in Stratford earlier tonight, having a pint mash.
A bit low rent. Was he over Beckton Alps doing a bit of skiing? Was he looking for a house, looking in his estate agent's window?
So I'm kind of putting hope that we will get him. It will not surprise me, like I said earlier on in the show, that we will get the centre back from Brighton. I know he's 30 years of age. I know he's not going to be to everyone's liking, but I can see that happening as well. And that might be our lot unless we get a loan signing. And I would like to think that we can get someone like Chukwuemeka in on loan.
Yes.
Unless Chelsea don't demand a straight fee for him. But
maybe are there any other takers still for Chukwuemeka?
Not that I've heard.
Neither. And he's surplus there, and that is their game. Chelsea, player trading is what they do. Now, I will say this now. No matter all the criticism I've been to the club and everything, if we can get that defender, that experienced new Craig Dawson, and get Margot Brobby, and then we get Chukwuemeka, I'll actually put that down as a decent window. Yeah, I agree. Well, it's going to be, as Sean said to us, it's going to be a frantic last week of the transfer window. And we're kind of close to entering that now, aren't we? You know what's really annoying, just to finish off, is the transfer window shuts on the day that we're playing again. And that happened last year when we sold Fornals. That was the deadline day, and it's going to happen again this time round, which I don't think is convenient, but anyway. Any last thoughts? No, other than please, West Ham, Sullivan. I know you don't. I know you're not watching. I know you don't. I don't like you. I don't like you and whatever. But honestly, just do the business, back the manager, and then that's it. We're all good, right? I don't have to like you. You don't have to like me. Just do it. Just back this manager. He will turn good. Please. That's all.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. And I literally only did ask you about 2 hours before we went on. So thank you. Really much appreciated. And are you going on Sunday? So long as the weather holds out?
Chelsea. No, Chris is going.
No. Villa.
Oh, Villa. No. I went out. No, I ain't going up there again. I couldn't get tickets. Right. I tried, but I couldn't get them. So
he should have only. He could have asked.
Yeah, I'll ask next time. But I went in the other week. I got attacked by a Villa fan outside afterwards, a ginger one as well. You know.
You got attacked? What? Are you serious?
No, I didn't get attacked. He put his. I
thought you
didn't
were
know
being
what he was
serious.
saying. It sounded like he was like in my face. What he was saying was, I think I translated it. I was Potter out now, is it? And he's like right in my face. I went, go away, mate, go away. So yeah, bloody Villa fans. So no, I'm not doing that.
Well, I had a traumatic experience. You know how bitterly cold it was in the cup game.
Yes.
I lost the glove, and I did put out
You like one black hand? Is that what it was?
I actually lost
frostbite.
I was really absolutely. You know what? That pissed me off
Yeah.
more than the bloody result. You know, we were walking up, and I dropped something, and I picked whatever I dropped, the charger. And as I was going, I was going, "Where's my glove?" And I actually turned back and tried to get. And I thought, "No, what am I doing?"
Well, they would have been expensive gloves, knowing you still, right? They would have been luxury,
of course they were
lined gloves. Yeah.
They are exactly that. See, you get it. You get it. There you go.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear
Gary, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much.
It's been brilliant. Cheers, Stel.
I'll chat to you soon. Cheers, mate.
See you soon.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Really much appreciated. It was an impromptu show, so I'm glad you all came on and watched the show with us. So be back. There'll be a preview at some point tomorrow. I'll do a preview of the game against Aston Villa coming up. So do look out for that. I'm not going to tell you what time because I don't know what time it'll be on. So look out for that. And of course, I'll be at the Villa game. So be with Wiggy, be with Paul, be with a few others. And I'm sure we'll do some kind of post-match review on the train on the way home or whatever. So look out for that too. Thank you for watching. By the way, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I should have said that nearly 2 hours ago. But I'll see you all very soon.